evening, everybody, those in the gallery and those watching at home, and welcome to the special edition of the Manitowoc County Board of Supervisors meeting tonight. First up, I'll give an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. If everybody please rise. Heavenly Father, as we enter the month of December, let us remember the simple gift of the season, that of giving. May we be generous with our treasure and our time. Help us to remember those who are struggling, those who are healing, and those who are grieving. As our lives walk the path to the joy of Christmas and then out into the quiet pace of winter, grant us health to perform our duties, insight to enable us to work diligently together, and a measure of creativity so that we may look from all angles and produce innovations that will forward our community. As always, Lord, thank you for your gifts to us, for your presence and your peace. May we use those gifts to the best of our ability in the service of our community. In Christ's name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There. And let's see here, we'll go to that, so we're set on that. All right, roll call has gone around. 25 members are all present. We have a full board here this evening. Thank you all for attending. I know it was kind of a short notice, but I appreciate your time and effort in coming here tonight. So next up will be consideration and correction of the minutes from our November 8th, 2018 meeting. Motion by Supervisor Benke, seconded by Supervisor Ballman to approve those minutes. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, motion carried, and the minutes are approved. Additions or deletions to the agenda, I will turn it over to County Clerk Lois Keel. We just have one quick, we're going to do, yes.
Under Roman numeral 7, reports of county supervisors, number 1, Corporation Counsel Peter Conrad with a presentation on open meetings laws has been pulled for this evening.
Okay, thank you. We'll do that next month in our December normal meeting, just for quicker discussion, or better, I shouldn't say better discussion, but maybe for a longer, prolonged discussion. But thank you very much, Lois. Boy, who's jumping around here? Anyways, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Motion by Supervisor Hoffman, second by Supervisor Hendrickson. Discussion on the motion. See not all in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, motion carried, and we have our agenda. So, public comments. If there's anybody from the public wish to speak to any matter germane to county government, please raise your hand and give your address, and you'll be allowed approximately 3 minutes to speak. We'll start off with Mr. Wills.
Good evening, Peter Wills, 202 North 8th Street, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, Executive Director, Progress Lakeshore. Thank you very much for having this meeting in order to review the items in the 2019 budget. County Board members, I ask you tonight to support Progress Lakeshore. We are the economic development entity that retains, grows, and attracts businesses, entrepreneurs, and talent in Manitowoc County and have for the last 15 years. Our businesses currently are in desperate need of workers to fill the estimated 3,000 open positions. The companies that are competing for workers with surrounding counties, not just of companies in the Manitowoc area, but over 9 states is where our folks commute. These counties that cannot fill jobs will eventually lose companies to the counties that can. I'm talking to a company right now, and we are potentially looking at a company coming into this area because there's another county that is having some similar challenges. I'm certain that our companies are having the same conversations if they continue to not be able to fill open positions. Eventually we'll lose those companies, and nearing to the point where more baby boomers are beginning to retire at the same point, and the competition is only going to get higher. Progress Lakeshore has been working with multiple organizations to attract workers through job fairs, promoting companies through social media to surrounding companies, and now at the point that we need to actively attract talent from outside to fill these positions, help our schools and taxpayers through adding to the city and county budgets that are stretched, as we're seeing some of the borrowing that's been going on, not only here, but in other areas. The $60,000 in funding is not duplicated by funding by other municipal partners. Each of these municipals contributes $2 per resident. The The 60,000 is 30,000 county residents that are not covered by these municipalities, by Manitowoc, Two Rivers, Kiel, or Mishicot. The $2 per resident can make Manitowoc more competitive in the resources to attract and grow to our area. We're one of the few counties in this whole northeast Wisconsin that if we look in our surrounding 5 or 6 counties that have not grown. This has made us less competitive, and this puts our residents at a disadvantage. And as a county board member, I'm certain that you're looking forward to the future and how to expect to grow our county. That is our aim as Progress Lake Shore, is that we retain, grow, and attract. So I would ask again that you look at the best way to help support this is support the organization that does. The surrounding counties to us have an organization that is county funded by the cities at a much higher rate. So we look at that opportunity, just be on the same pace as the other counties, we need to actually come out ahead. So we have been working already diligently on behalf of our companies, and we certainly want to make sure that we're working on behalf of all residents of Manitowoc County. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Yes, the gentleman in the front row.
Mike Havlinek, 2224 County Road W, just south of Collins, that'd be Miss Wagner's area. A time when money is tight is not the time to be spending money frivolously. One recent example is a referendum to back store on the dark store loophole. Money spent to ask our reps in Madison to do what they said they would do anyway. 3 more items have come up in the board's proposed budget, mentioned in Mr. Siegelbauer's proposal. Spending money on items for the board that they already have is a waste of taxpayer money. Paying money to become a member of the Chamber of Commerce is a waste of taxpayer money. This is a business, not a government organization. Giving $60,000 to Progress Lakeshore is a waste of taxpayer money. This is a business organization. At every board meeting recently, we were told that we don't have money for certain projects. These 3 items are examples of ways we should be trimming the budget. This money could be spent, put to better use, providing essential services to citizens of the county. There has also been much talk about raising the county's sales tax. I say that until you can show responsibility with the money we already give you, don't come asking for more.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else wishing to speak this evening? Yes.
Good evening, Will Casey, 3202 Goss Lake Road in Manitowoc. I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of Progress Lakeshore. I've been a board member there for how many years, Peter? A long time. I did pull a map on the projected population growth for the 72 counties in Wisconsin, and we made the list of 13 counties that are projected to decline in population over the next 20 years. I also understand that not so long ago we had a substantial surplus in the county budget, which has been completely eroded, and now we're taking on debt. I would submit that the only way that we're going to make this work is for our county to grow. I did hear in one of the meetings somebody comment about the fact that, well, if you could just put a dome over Lake Michigan, then everything would be solved. Well, if you look at the map here, every other county but Door County is expected to grow pretty dramatically in the next 10 to 20 years. So I would leave you just with one thought, and that is, the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Is there anybody else wishing to speak this evening? Yes.
Thank you, Board. Andy Melizova, 4717 River Heights Drive, Manitowoc. I've been a member on Progress Lake Shore for going on my second term of 3 years. As a partner and I run a company in town called K&M LLC. We support manufacturing, and we, have apprenticeship, and we, bring up, kids to work in our society and help fix our factories and keep everything going. What I've experienced over the years, and I've been part of this community with manufacturing since I've been 18, 42 today. Seeing companies go, seeing some companies come, but seeing the bigger ones go, which I know that brings, heavy, monies into our system here, with tax dollars and such, and, good jobs. All of our guys work in town, it's all local money going back into our society. The involvement that I've had with Progress and the hard charging that Peter does, it is amazing the work that's done behind the scenes that nobody sees or knows, and the collaboration of our group of the board that all of us are putting in our own time that are, such business owners and manufacturing, and, others such like, Will and Vicky and things, that the importance that it does do behind the scenes. And I just ask that everybody please have an open mind and allow us to grow this to, fulfill our county and the city and bring more jobs and revenue and roll it around. So I thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Andy, for your comments. Is there anybody else wishing to speak this evening? Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, Vicky.
Vicki Seehafer, 4833 Veranda Court, Manitowoc. I just have a couple comments. I'm a mother of 2 children. I grew up in a family business. I've lived here my whole entire life. I have a 25-year-old and a 29-year-old who live here. One moved to Nashville and he moved back. He moved back because he didn't like 4 sides of Nashville. Manitowoc has a beautiful lake shore that we sell every day. It's something counties, many don't have, and we have that right here. This is so important to have public, government, the county, everybody coming together to be able to work toward making this a better place to live, to bring people in, to add more jobs, to bring more companies here. If my 25-year-old son, who moved back from Nashville, believes in this county enough to invest in a multi-million-dollar project that will be developed on our riverfront within the next 2 years, I think we all need to really take a look at what our young people are bringing to this county. And it's time we help that happen. So I ask that you all really think about the decision you're going to make tonight and what we can do together if you join forces and see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky, for your comments. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Yes, Greg.
Hi, Greg Jegman, 1015 Franklin Street, Manitowoc. I just want to share a little bit of information tonight before you vote. I went to school for my undergraduate and graduate degree at UW Eau Claire, and I lived there for 10 years. And I watched Eau Claire go from having music in the park and a dirt field where we'd all park out there to having a thriving downtown, a confluence project where they have businesses, restaurants, parking ramp, all of these things to support that. And Eau Claire has an economic development corporation. Their county supports it. It doesn't happen overnight. Can't say that one thing is going to change everything immediately. But at the same time, seeing that process happen a little over 10 years ago and watching that grow, I want to be in Manitowoc. I moved back for our family business. And I want to see that same thing here, and I want to see us succeed. So I wanted to share a little story from the other side of the state just before you vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Greg. Is there anybody else wishing to speak this evening? Anyone else wishing to speak? And for, yes, Maura?
Chip Yost, Centerville. Jack Lew, former Treasury Secretary, said that the budget is not just a collection of numbers, but an expression of our values and aspirations. We have to reduce the burden of debt. Last June, I described Manitowoc County's values as industry, frugality, and self-sufficiency. We work hard. We want to keep as much income as we can for our own needs and desires. And we pride ourselves on our self-reliance. Good times and hard times come and go. I watched firsthand workers' emotional and financial devastation as our manufacturing facilities closed down. I worked for years to help our county residents transition into new employment and training opportunities. Since 2006, a number of systemic changes have impacted county finances, including the 27% increase in the inflation rate and decreases in both state shared revenue aids and transportation aids to Manitowoc County. Failing to recognize, acknowledge, and offset these systemic changes through increased revenues has left the county beholden to the lenders. To date, the county budgetary shortfalls have been offset by liquidating public land and building assets and borrowing money to balance the budget. The rating agency Moody's noted in its downgrade of Manitowoc County's prospects, quote, "The negative outlook reflects the county's ongoing structural imbalances that have led to deterioration in financial flexibility and limited ability to absorb negative budget variances." Beginning in 2017, the Finance Committee began a diligent study of the possibility of a county-wide half-penny sales tax. That fall, the committee held hearings in Maribel, Manitowoc, and Kiel. The most common question asked was, what is the plan? In July 2017, our county executive railed against implementing the half-penny sales tax, even demanding the county board, quote, "not pass the resolution and end the discussion of this unwisely oppressive tax on our citizens." As legislators, he attempted to poison the well of your studied assessment of the half-penny sales tax by his intransigence. He has left you in a position of borrowing even more. Now, in his proposed 2019 budget, our county executive asks you county board legislators to approve his plan to borrow another $6.5 million in principal, and without knowing the interest rate or the term. You will have borrowed $18 million in principal in 3 years. Had the sales tax been implemented last year, perhaps we would be borrowing less than $1.5 million today. We do know that our county currently owes $33 million through 2038. The county taxpayers have paid over $13 million in interest since 2016, and that they will pay another $4.3 million in interest through 2021. That is without the proposed $6.5 million in principal borrowing. In an uncertain world where we have little impact on federal or state debt, you do impact our county's debt level. Will your legacy as county board legislators reflect the values of industry, frugality, and self-reliance? Thank you.
Thank you, Maura, for your comments. Is there anybody else wishing to speak this evening? Anyone else wishing to speak? And seeing one last time, anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll declare public comment closed. And we'll move on to the only, I guess, discussion item from myself tonight, discussion and possible action To overturn county executive line item vetoes of resolution number 2018-57, the adoption of the 2019 budget and property levy and such other action as may be necessary to adopt the 2019 budget. As you see on your agenda, there is, first of all, let's go back a couple steps. As you're well aware, the county executive vetoed 3 portions of the budget that passed the county board on a vote from of 16 to 7, if I remember correctly. It was the iPads for the county board members in the amount of $9,850. The Chamber of Commerce membership for an amount of $422, and the membership in Progress Lakeshore for $60,000. I talked with Peter before, actually at the last meeting, and we can vote on these separately, and which was the plan tonight. Obviously, you'd have to have a motion to restore the funding and a second for the discussion. That doesn't happen, it just goes by the wayside. And just so everybody is on the same page and familiar with this as well, if every vote that is taken, it will only be one vote, I guess, on each one of them. If it comes down to that, has to pass to put it back in the budget by a vote of at least 17 votes. So 17 members of the county board have to support that vote to put it back in the budget. I think everybody's clear on that. Any questions or on that? All right. Next, the first one on the agenda potentially is the iPads for county board members in the amount of $9,850. Is there any motions? Supervisor Hoffman, I'll defer to you. You are on.
I make a motion that we return the $9,850 for the iPads back into the budget.
Is there a second? Oh, yeah, you have to raise your hand again, I guess, I'm sorry. So second by Supervisor Holzbach. All right, so we have a motion and discussion on the adding of $9,850 back into the budget for the purchase of county-owned iPads for the county board supervisors. Any discussion? Supervisor Hoffman, you have the floor, if you want to continue to speak, or...
Again, I am in favor of it. I believe that we do our Manitowoc County business, and it needs to be kept on a separate iPad or thing. It does not need to be put onto our personal equipment that we have at home. I think it's just not a big item factor, and I don't see that we should all keep them. I have no problem with it returning it if I do not run next time. And we have people in our county work staff that are capable of taking all the stuff off of it and sending it on to the next person that takes my spot.
Thank you, Supervisor Hoffman. Supervisor Bruner, you were next.
Thank you. I too am going to support this restoration of this funding. As I've learned over the last couple of weeks, it seems that, well, we all know we have our private information in here, our usernames, our passwords, the information that really we don't want out in the public is in our own devices. If we use them for public use and a question comes up of open records laws, we are then subjecting all of our information, the information that we've got held sacred inside these little devices, to the public. I'm not willing to risk that possibly happening for either my personal use or my business information is kept in here as well. And so quite honestly, if we don't restore this, I will revert to paper, because I don't think it's a good idea for any of us to be using our own electronic devices in this setting. So I believe we should have county-issued electronic devices to do county business on. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bruner. I'm going to let Peter speak quickly.
To be clear, your private information, whether it's personal or whether it's business or it's anything unrelated to any county business, is not subject to the public records law, regardless of whether it's on a publicly owned electronic device, whether it's a tablet, a two-in-one, an iPad or a desktop, or if it's on your personal private device. That is not subject to the public records law.
I was going to hopefully discuss this, I guess, when we talked about the presentation before, but we'll do the next one. But I will throw out the question, and because I've got, I guess, different information. And there has been cases, I guess, in the United States where there has been, I don't want to say confiscation, but subpoenaed documents and subpoenaed records and subpoenaed personal devices that were taken in. I don't know what they actually look for on that, but I guess it does happen, if I understand correctly.
What it would be is it would be a request for public records, and you would be obligated to comply with those public records. Beyond that, your personal information is not subject. So as far as a subpoena or something of that nature goes, that's more, well, quite frankly, that's a criminal, that sounds like a criminal type of action. So that would be, again, distinctive than the public records law. That would be probably, for example, we had heard about the John Doe hearings, those types of things. That would be the set of circumstances. But again, that doesn't have anything to do with public records or operating under, again, your county business. Again, regardless of whether it's on a personal device or a county-owned device.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Bruner. We'll continue with the speaking list. Supervisor Benke, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will not be supporting this motion. I called Ashley at IS this afternoon, and if there's any, basically you're going to be doing email. I mean, that's all it is, email. And any email that you have on your personal device, if someone with higher authority wants to know what you're doing on your email, they can go right down to the IS department and get all of our emails right off the system. They're not going to take your personal computer, and I guess if you're worried about improprieties, you know, you shouldn't be on the computer to begin with, I guess. I don't see that having your personal computer is going to put you in this circumstance where now you're going to have to worry about open records being taken off your computer. They have access to those already. And I'm still all for the fact of going paperless. We do it at personnel, we do it at highway. It's fantastic. It's working out well. And we're hoping that everybody else gets the emails of information. Hopefully, all the departments can share their packets of information with everybody. So I know what Human Service is doing, all the packet information. We should be all getting all of that on our email, so we know what things you're working on. And I have no doubt that my new laptop here is going to do just fine, and I have no worries about doing my county business on that. And so, again, I will not support the motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Benke. But a clarification, I guess, in one of your comments, you said anybody can just go down and, I guess, search IS. That's not entirely true, I guess. You'd have to file an open records request legitimately, and that's the way. And essentially correct, yes.
That's my point.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Falkowski, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was happy that our corporate counsel did clarify some of the information about the open records law, and just a little tip off to Maura, who in her last communication, she actually did have a link going to the public records compliance guide. So thank you for that. I do read your emails. Generally speaking, I'm still conflicted a little bit, because getting back to, let me approach this from an analogy standpoint. If I was trying to make an application as a mechanic, and I came to a shop and I said, I'm a mechanic and I'm going to be hired, and then the guy says, well, put your tools over there, and I'll say, well, I don't have any. You have to buy my own tools. I reflect a little bit back to our last conversation of, if we are engaged in doing a job for our constituency, what are we investing in ourselves for these things? You have to not have it dropped on you. I mean, granted, I understood the logic that the discussion about using an iPad is easy for people who have never used that, but quite honestly, that kind of brings up a question. You have this tool and you still don't know how to use it. You're gonna learn how to do stuff? Do you have to get training on maybe using some skill sets that you haven't possessed before? I reflect back, if you were really interested in having a digital device, you should have got it as a tool and been equipped with understanding and practicing with it. having us purchase iPads for other people that probably didn't have interest in getting these things in the first place, now not knowing necessarily what to do with it. Now, granted, there are a lot of books you can probably look at. I remember the Books for Dummies kind of a series, that if you don't know how to use an iPad, you can get a book for dummies. I even think that they have a book for dummies for data mining. I mean, they really do have a lot of topics of stuff. But if you're going to invest in using a tool, then maybe you should have done that before, because this is not going to be the solution to whatever deficits you don't possess now. You're going to have to earn it, and unfortunately, I don't think that we should supply iPads for our supervisors that actually haven't engaged in getting them themselves. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Falkowski. Supervisor Metzger, you were next.
I know Virginia from Kewaunee County said that they once got busted for a walking quorum, and she owns her own business in Kewaunee, and she said the whole thing got turned over. You know what I mean? All the information from private businesses and everything that she had on there was all turned over. So I know that that does happen, where you have to turn everything over. Also, I remember when Phil Hoff was on the board, he had emailed something, and then I remember him saying that we shouldn't talk about that anymore, because he said he has clients on there, and if ever anything became of it, that they could investigate his whole computer. So I know that that does violate your computers if you have county business and your own personal business, especially if you have your own business on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Metzger. Supervisor Zimmer, you were next.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, our information comes to us through the internet, through the Outlook email site. Suddenly, we're concerned about that. I've been on the county board for quite a few years now, and nobody's been upset about the fact that we use an email site, and we get our information from that site. We communicate with others from that site. There's absolutely no danger of compromising ourselves by using that, and it certainly doesn't mean that we have to switch to an iPad to do it. You know, when I'm on the Outlook site, even if I forget to log out, eventually the system is going to log me out from that site. If I want to put items from the Outlook email site onto my computer desktop, I can do that very easily. These are not secret documents, they're public documents. They're agendas and announcements. This doesn't require us to spend $10,000 on iPads. That's a frivolous expenditure. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, since you and the Honorable Supervisor Williams are not only county board members, but your city council members, does that mean you guys are going to get 2 iPads? You got one already. So now you're going to get issued another one. I would think that one of them will be gathering a lot of dust on your desks at home. I'm certainly going to vote against this ill-considered waste of money.
Thank you for your comments, Supervisor Zimmer. You see, Supervisor Henriksen, you are next.
I also will not support this motion. Just for a simple fact is, like Supervisor Banky said, if there's some conflict, they can go to the IT department. And it's what I checked on when I had to put on my phone. While I was off, I was able to keep in contact with the county board through my phone. And I feel that is good enough for me. I don't feel we need to spend $10,000 on that. But I will not support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Girola, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't support this motion either. I would say that if somebody was concerned at the price of HD fires and the knockoff iPads and things like that and other devices that read emails, a person could spend a little of their own money and buy one and just use it for county board purposes if that was a concern. I don't really think it is. And I think a lot of people have iPads and laptops and smartphones and sitting around at all of these meetings. I see quite a few of them now, and in committee meetings I've seen a lot of them, and I don't think this is a wise use of taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Girola. Supervisor Dizak, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick comment is that this thing is morphed into a open records debate when that isn't really the issue. I believe that's a diversion away from the topic. The topic is, should the county taxpayers pay $10,000 to buy us iPads? And it's a very basic question. I don't believe that the county taxpayers should be buying us electronic devices. I think it'd be the tip of the iceberg, because this would just continue on and on, be more and more expenses for electronic devices, maintenance, security, the whole issue. It's not just the first, this would be just the first $10,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Any other discussion? And I'm going to end the conversation. And so then one last time, any other discussion? All right, I guess then I will end it. As you know, I brought this idea up. I don't think it's frivolous. I don't think it's a waste of taxpayers' money. I've talked with many of you about potentially going to the next step after, if we do get the iPads, of going to the Granicus thing, which the city of Manitowoc works well with. As you know, we've had concerns over the last several years. Comcast broadcasts have been scarce and have troubled here, and only Manitowoc cable subscribers can see it. Residents in the city of Two Rivers can't see it. People in the village of Mishkot can't see it. People in the town of, or the village of Whitelaw, the town of Cato, they can't see it. City of Kiel, they can't see it. Maybe later on they can watch it secondhand on YouTube, and sometimes that's sketchy. Doesn't happen. It's all about being open and honest. And I guess it scares me that some of you don't want that to happen. We have a program, Supervisor Zimmer, you can shake your head all you want, and I'm getting a little upset about that because this is not an issue of just $10,000. And I was going to use this argument later on, I guess, when we could discuss the Progress Lakeshore, but Manitowoc County is becoming an island by ourselves around the state of Wisconsin. Every county surrounding us has county-owned issued iPads or some kind of computer device. I was surprised to find out in Calumet County, they even give them out to their Human Service Board members. I find that interesting. We just don't want to, I guess, expand into the 21st century. We have opportunities here to become more informant and more accessible to the public, especially with some of the programs like Granicus, where you can watch the county board meetings or any committee meetings live and then go back to them later on and see them if you want to see them again. That's what being open and honest is. I guess I'm really disappointed we don't want to jump that current. I understand, I certainly respect your votes, I certainly respect your opinions, but I guess I'm very disappointed. And I guess it's going to segue into the last discussion we're going to have tonight. We've become an island. This county has become an island. No wonder why we don't grow. With that, the clerk will now conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the motion of the veto of the iPads for county board members in the amount of $9,850.
If you vote yes on the motion, you are supporting adding the $9,850 back into the budget. If you vote no, you are saying no, you're not going to add it back in. Does that clarify it? So the motion fails 11 to 14 with Supervisors Holschbach, Nichols, Metzger, Bry, Brunner, Hanson, Vogt, Vogel, Hoffman, Geimer, and Swade voting yes. So that will remain out of the budget. Next up, the Chamber of Commerce membership for $422. Supervisor Hendrickson? I'm sorry?
I'll make the motion.
To add the $422 back in?
Yes,
So
sir.
motion by Supervisor Hendrickson, seconded by Supervisor Ballman. Discussion on the motion. Supervisor Hendrickson, since you made the motion, if you want to talk first, that's fine.
I will support this motion. I believe it is necessary for us to grow. Hence, I so move.
All right, thank you very much. Supervisor Ballman, you were next.
A couple of weeks ago, I told the board members that I've been spending my weekends down in the Janesville area due to some illness of my family down there. So I thought, well, they sent me a nice packet. So I contacted the chamber here, and I said, what are we sending out? They sent out a Manitowoc County area map, a state map, membership resource directory, Manitowoc to Rivers directory, living here from the Herald Times Reporter. And if you're interested in moving here, they also send out a book on homes that are available here. The cost to the county, $422, amounts to $1.16 a day. And all it's giving the county board stamp of approval on what they're doing. I think $1.16 a day we can afford very easily. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Ballman. Any other discussion on the motion? Any other discussion? And third and final time, anybody else want to discuss? I guess quickly, I requested this in my county board budget. I have in my office a list of a plaque that had membership, proud membership, I guess, in Manitowoc Chamber of Commerce or the county Chamber of Commerce for years and years and years until 2010 when then County Board Chairman Paul Tittle and County Executive Zigglebauer decided to take it out of the budget. Disappointing, I guess, and and I understand. I don't agree with everything the Chamber of Commerce does. I've made Karen Nichols know that, and she's certainly appreciative and always listened to me. But I think for the most part, it goes back to what's I'm going to say more, I guess, wholeheartedly. I guess in the next conversation is when businesses and people come to this area, they ask, well, how come Manitowoc County isn't part of your Chamber of Commerce? I guess, like I said, in the first discussion, we've become an island. So, with that, I hope you support the motion. Seeing that, yes, please, sorry.
Supervisors will now vote on the motion to override the county executive's veto for the Chamber of Commerce membership in the amount of $422.
So the motion passed 18-7 with Supervisors Gauger, Zimmer, Wagner, Marish, Gerold, Dizak voting no. So the $422 is put back in the budget, and I guess we'll have a discussion about how we're going to join the chamber once again later on. Thank you very much. And last but not least for tonight is the discussion of Progress Lakeshore membership in an amount of $60,000. Is there a motion? Supervisor Holschbach? So you're making a motion to add the $60,000 back? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. So that's a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Metzger. Discussion on the motion. I'll begin. Supervisor Holschbach, you have the floor if you wish.
Sure.
You're all set.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be supporting the restoration of this funding that the county board approved. The leaders of Progress Lakeshore once again did a great job kind of explaining to all of us their value to the community. And last time more numbers were discussed. You know, the Progress Lakeshore has been connected with and has helped facilitate $250 million in capital investment, 2,500 jobs, entrepreneurship programs, young apprentice programs. the kind of organization and activities that they are and provide keep young people in our community and work toward that. Retain, grow, and attract. So that's what the 60,000 is for. Retain, grow, and attract. You know, to those who have issues with open meetings concerns, the 60,000 is for all of the stuff they do, and it's not to pay for the table or the meals of two businesses talking with them. And they're going to be glad to talk with the county exec or any one of us on their strategy with different businesses. So I don't think 60,000, and a bunch of other counties and municipalities agree with me, 60,000 doesn't necessarily get you access to the proprietary information of a company. And there's no, you know, nefarious goals here. It's retain, grow, and attract. It's about the community. And like the chair, I get, I guess, passionate about this issue because I think the county hamstrings itself. We're the county that can't do a sales tax. Everybody else can. And they can invest in their roads and their bridges and their highways without maybe as much borrowing. All the other counties can do that, but Manitowoc can't. Progress Lakeshore. Municipalities are across the state investing in economic development groups and realizing real economic development, but Manitowoc can't. We can't. Then we were told, a supervisor mentioned last week, we can't have economic growth because of Lake Michigan. There's a lot of municipalities and counties up and down the lakeshore that leverage Lake Michigan and showcase Lake Michigan, and the result is economic development. And economic development leads to more revenue, so we can pay attention to a lot of the issues we need to pay more attention to. So I guess from my standpoint, we're kind of bringing up these this rationale for not investing in economic development, and other counties around us are doing the opposite. So we could learn from that and invest in economic development. It's not the silver bullet, Progress Lakeshore or the Chamber, but you know, it's reality. They're helping facilitate a lot of good things happening in our community. And even someone questioned it last time and said, well, I know this business and this business. It's not true. They had nothing to do with Progress Lakeshore. And then that business came forward and said, oh, yes. Yeah, Progress Lakeshore was a major part of our decision-making process. So your money is not, I don't think we need to worry about knowing the proprietary information of companies that might come to the community. I think we should be satisfied by pitching in and retaining, growing, and attracting folks to our community. So I'll be supporting.
Thank you, Supervisor Holschpot. Supervisor Marsh, you were next.
Thank you. I had supported this in the budget. But after a conversation, after the last meeting that I had with Mr. Wills, and I asked him to please work with us. You know, I would support this, but let's think about this. Let's somehow work together regarding the open meeting. I served on the, back when it was the EDC, and so I know there are things that you aren't going to discuss, but there are ways to go around that. When I talked to him about that, he said that will never happen, to work together to try and come up with some solution. I'm very disappointed in that because I would have supported giving this money, but we have to work together. He said also that we would be setting a precedent in the state. We're Manitowoc County. Let's do it for our county. I ask the Board of Directors to please, please work with us on this, to consider at least helping to work around it and not coming up with a, no, this will never happen. So I am not supporting the money for Progress Lakeshore now. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Mars. Supervisor Zimmer, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Before you start, Supervisor Zimmer, I'd like to apologize to you the way I worded back to you. That was unexcusable of the chair, and I apologize for that. I am passionate, and you're passionate just as everybody else, but I should not have fired back that, so I apologize for that.
Your apology is accepted, sir. And, you know, I wasn't shaking my head. I just went, so you must have been looking at somebody else, but using my name. But Mr. Chairman, this relates to this issue. You said we're becoming an island, and I would say that's ridiculous. We're a growing county. I mean, just go take a tour of our industrial park over across from Menards. Things are booming over there. We're not. Gosh, the way people talk, some people in this chamber, we're just dying, and that is absolutely untrue. You know what brings in one of the largest groups of people every year to Manitowoc County is the Kite Fest over in Two Rivers, and as a result, people from out of state are slowly but surely buying those smaller houses in and around Neshota Beach. My nephew lives over there, and a couple of people on his street from out of state have bought those small houses, and they fix them up and they're using them for vacation places. So, you know, we're far from a dying community. It just seems to me that some people believe that, gosh, we're just not taxing enough. Oh, the horrors. I think that says a lot of good things about us rather than negative things. And you know, I can think of many other uses within the county government, Mr. Chairman, within the county government's area of responsibility for the $60,000 that Progress Lakeshore seeks. For example, at the last county board meeting, did you notice District Attorney Jackie LeBray in the audience? I'm certain that she could use an extra $60K to augment her office's ongoing efforts to curb this serious opioid crisis that we have in this county. Moreover, she'd expect us to hold her accountable for the expenditures of these monies. Unlike Progress Lakeshore, which expects us to hand over taxpayer dollars with no strings attached. And that brings me to the open meeting statutes. We cannot violate the open meeting statutes. That's state law, for heaven's sakes. We can't just frivolously say we're going to ignore that. If these people don't want to abide by the open meetings laws as a condition of whether they receive the 60K, then for that reason alone, we need to reject their request. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Zimmer. Supervisor Ballman, you were next.
I know Mr. Zimmer's retired Army, probably, I don't know if he's been in business before. Relate a quick story to you. In 1978, I wanted to open a restaurant in Madison. I knew they were building some state office buildings in the vicinity. I found a location, talked to the owner, went to the bank, got the loan officers okay, went back to the building owner and said, okay, well, I'm all set to go. He said, I'm sorry, he said, but the guy that was looking at it before you called me and said that he was gonna take it. I found out later that that guy was a friend of the president of the bank. That's why you do things where you can't divulge what you're gonna do ahead of time as a business. So Supervisor Marsh, Supervisor Zimmer, that open meetings law is, I think everybody else is ignoring it. I don't know what the big hang-up is here. I also asked the mayor for a letter telling him what the Progress Lakeshore helped us in Kiel, and you have it. I forwarded it to you today. You have it in your packet. We wouldn't be near where we are had we not worked with Peter Wills. So I am going to strongly support it like I have in the past. Thank you.
Supervisor Ballman, and I guess that segues into something I was going to quickly say, I guess, and I was going to read that letter from Mayor Steinhardt as the mayor of Kiel, and one other letter, and I'll read that. We'll start with the one that was addressed to Supervisor Ballman, that you did receive it as an email, and I had Jessica make copies of it because we don't have anything electronically to put it on for everybody. Dear Mr. Ballman, the city of Kiel has been a long-time supporter of Progress Lakeshore for many years with both monetary and board support. We have seen very positive outcomes from our investment and relationship with Progress Lakeshore. Our business community is growing and vibrant because of their assistance. As a small community, Kiel has not had the resources to dedicate, develop, and focus on many economic development issues that come before us. We very much appreciate the economic development expertise that they provide, and they are always there to assist us. We have turned to Progress Lakeshore to assist us with business development, TID development, educational assistance for small businesses, human resources development, managing and assisting with government regulations, and grant development. I would urge you to support the proposal for Manitowoc County to join the other communities who contribute to Progress Lakeshore's goals for economic development within the county. Best regards, Mike Steinhardt, Mayor of the City of Kiel. And I also have one letter that I'm going to read that it came from a discussion from our last meeting where we're discussing, I don't recall with minute, but about talking about Progress Lakeshore and working with Robinson Metal. There was discussion that there was no involvement. Well, I think you all got a copy of this too, but I think publicly it should be read, and I'm going to read it. It's from Sam Thomas, the operation manager of Robinson Metal. Good afternoon. It was brought to light via media coverage that a statement was made in a recent board meeting in regard to Progress Lakeshore's role in Robinson's decision-making process to choose the Manitowoc location for expansion over other cities in the United States. I would like to make a clarifying statement on behalf of Robinson Metal, as I was the party dealing with Progress Lakeshore, the City of Manitowoc, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, and the Manitowoc Company. When Robinson Metal was exploring expansion, we were looking throughout the country, in particular the Midwest and Southwest regions of the United States. In order for our strategy to work, the new location had to meet two requirements. We needed square footage with the ability to lift in excess of 40 tons and overhead and under hook weight of at least 29 inches. The other requirement had everything to do with labor availability. Both of these components had to be met for a location to make sense for Robinson. The Manitowoc facility itself fit the bill for what we were looking for. However, the facility itself was not enough for us to pull the trigger on this location. Progress Lakeshore was very helpful in providing data and meeting with us, as well as putting us in touch with the right people to paint a picture of labor availability and make Robinson comfortable with the labor requirement that could be fulfilled here in Manitowoc. The reality is, without the help of Progress Lakeshore, it would have taken us longer to make a decision, and possibly not having made the choice of Manitowoc at all. I hope this helps paint a more accurate picture of our decision-making process and the role that all parties played in that process. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. We are very happy to have made the decision to become part of the Manitowoc community, and we look forward to working with you for a very long time. Thank you. In constant pursuit, Sam Thomas, the operation manager at Robinson Metal. Next up on the speakers list is Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Open meetings laws. I have not supported Progress Lakeshore in the past, funding for it because of open meetings laws. However, and some people may call this negative, but I can't sit here anymore and watch the county lose population. State of Wisconsin data in the next 2 decades, Manitowoc County will shrink in population. It's because a lot of us have gray hair, and people aren't moving in. That's data saying we're going to lose population. Data says our economic growth lags behind everybody else in this area. That's data. We can all go around and see houses going up and things happening, and that's exciting to see that. But compared to other counties, it's not as good. And I'm not being negative. I care about this place. Each one of my 62 years I've been here. And I remember the days when Miro and Manitowoc Company were flying and this place was buzzing. And it's been hard working ourselves back, but we're still lagging. And I don't want to spend money frivolously. I don't want to waste taxpayer money. But we've had 12 years of low taxes, and we're not growing as fast as other places around. That's data. We've kept the line on taxes, and I appreciate that we don't waste it. But we're not growing as fast as the counties around us. And this is a pretty darn good place to live. I appreciate the efforts. One of the supervisors wants to try to get a commission together to have the city and the county work together for industrial development. That's a great idea. But the reality is the way the county and city work together, that's not happening. Is Progress Lakeshore perfect? No, not at all. And I think that's evident in the concerns of Supervisor Marsh. But you know what, guys and ladies? We got to try something. This is a wonderful place to be, but we have to do something. This organization helps. Do they do it alone? No. Can I say Project Lakeshore got this industry to come to Manitowoc and it gave us 100 jobs? I don't think we can find that, but they were part of a lot of the decisions to move here. It's working together. And if Manitowoc and Two Rivers and Kiel are all in this, why isn't the county in it? Why aren't we helping those areas? You know, maybe someone's interested in St. Nazianz or Valders or Reedsville. Why isn't it a county? It should be a county-wide project to get us going. You know, I did say a lot before this because a lot has been said. But it is time for us to move forward. It is time for us to take a step and get this place going. One of the speakers tonight talked about her son investing in Manitowoc. Those are young people trying to come back, trying to start here, trying to live here. We need them. We need that energy. We need those new ideas. We need people that love this place enough to come back and live in our communities. And that's what those young people will do. And maybe it's time we start helping more people discover what a wonderful place this is. My hope is that the board of directors would say we're going to public open meeting law standards. I wish they would do that. But I'm ready to take the chance before they do that because we've got to move forward, ladies and gentlemen. I will support this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Hanson. Supervisor Holschbach, this is the second time you're speaking on this subject.
Thanks. And I only get 4, right?
2. Or if you have friends, like we mentioned last time.
Right. No, I just wanted to, first of all, I respect Supervisor Marish and her concern there. And I think, you know, my interpretation of what Progress Lakeshore said was never going to happen because of the dynamic that other groups like Progress Lakeshore are working with across the country, but just this, the dynamic of companies not being comfortable giving up certain information. Again, there's information that you as a county supervisor and the county exec can discuss with Progress Lakeshore. But I think the never gonna happen part of it was just the way of the world with companies that just don't wanna give up certain proprietary information. But I understand how you received it, and I would just say that, as Supervisor Hanson said, I hope that folks might just take a chance on this, given that we won't be the only community taking this chance, and we will realize economic development. And then to the supervisors and some public input that's all, talking about the frivolousness and the waste of taxpayer money. All of the stuff we're talking about tonight, and especially Progress Lakeshore, is about growing the tax base, so that when we talk about the district attorney's office and the funding needed, or the opioid crisis funding needed, we're talking about growing the tax base for that. We're not trying to, the objective is not to give perks out to certain people in the community. It's to, if the end result of us investing in Progress Lakeshore is a few more dollars for the stuff that we need to pay attention to. And I agree with Supervisor Hanson. You can be critical of the place you live and still love it. My wife and family, we were living in Madison, Wisconsin after both being born and raised here, and we had great jobs and loved the community, and we decided to come back to Manitowoc because we love the community. But you can have criticisms of the community and still support it. So, and then, well, I'll close my comments there. I hope people will take the chance and support this.
Thank you, Supervisor Holzbach. Supervisor Brunner, you were next.
Thank you. I think we can all agree that economic development, it's not snake oil, it's not lip service, it's a real thing, and it has great value to the taxpayers of Manitowoc County. While to some, job creation may not look that important during this time of really low unemployment, job creation assisted by Progress Lakeshore will bring more people into our community, which kind of goes back to what Todd said, increasing the tax base. It'll spur housing starts, which in turn will bring additional property tax dollars. Economic development will bring more people into our shops, our restaurants, making us stronger. But I think the single most important thing that this economic development will do is it will raise wages. The more and more businesses that call Manitowoc home will be fighting for the same people to work there. Ultimately, that's going to result in higher wages. There's going to be competition, and fortunately, people are going to make more money as a result of this these additional businesses. If you vote against this funding, I think in a sense you're telling your constituents, your taxpayers, that they should be happy where they're at. They shouldn't expect greater job opportunities. They shouldn't expect higher wages. They should be happy with the status quo because this is where we're at. Is this really what we want to tell the people of Manitowoc County? Last meeting, 23 supervisors were in attendance. 16 of us voted in favor of the budget as presented, which did include funding for this. Of the 23 of us in the room, we represented 72,000 people. Of the 16 supervisors who voted in favor of the budget, we represented 52,500 people. 72% of the people's representation supported this budget, which included Progress Lakeshore last meeting. And I would like to see that continue. For the good of the people of Manitowoc County, I implore you to vote for this funding. Economic development is definitely something we should, public money should be used for. It'll come back to us all in very positive ways. So please join me in support of funding of Progress Lakeshore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunner. Supervisor Swade, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we've heard from various supervisors that the cities and some of the villages are in favor of this joining the project of Progress Lakeshore. I have the resolution from the City of Two Rivers City Council. I'm just going to read the last part of it. Now therefore be resolved that the City Council of the City of Two Rivers does hereby urge the county board members representing the City of Two Rivers as well as all other county board members, to support Manitowoc County's re-engagement in the business of economic development with its business and governmental partners by voting to override any veto and funding Progress Lakeshore in the 2019 budget. I agree with you, Supervisor Zimmer, that Kite Fest is great. I was part of the organization, sponsoring organization that started that. We have a very, very good county-wide projects that bring in many, many people. We need to get together, have everybody involved. We've taken a pretty good hit in the city of Two Rivers. We've lost a pretty good sized plant between 16th and 19th Street. We need the help. We need the help from everybody, not just the city of Two Rivers, not just the city of Manitowoc, not just the city of Kiel, which I'm sure supports whatever we can get. But we also need everybody, all the people that support the 80-some thousand people in Manitowoc County, to help every entity, not just one or two. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Swade. Supervisor Niles, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was not in attendance at the last meeting, the budget meeting. I had another meeting I had to attend. At that meeting, I don't know that I would have supported Progress Lakeshore. You know, obviously their achievements are undeniable. They've been up and down the board here. The open meetings law is a concern of mine. The conversation with Supervisor Marsh and Mr. Wills is concerning to me as well. Despite all that, I can't disagree with most of the supervisors here. We need to move forward as a county, and I think this is the first step in doing so, so I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Supervisor Hendrickson, you were next.
Thank you. I was on the same area as Supervisor Hanson, and I too received a letter from the our city manager and a lot of the city representatives along. Greg called me tonight, and basically I'm just gonna echo Supervisor Swade's wording that, you know, we need to work together, and I will be supporting this measure because I see a lot of area in the city of Two Rivers that is basically not there anymore. You know, I see where Hamilton's was, where Paragon was. You know, Paragon's empty. Hamilton's gone. Eggers got sold. Hopefully, by doing this, we can get more business coming into this area. You know, not just people buying up homes on the lakeshore just for, you know, renting them out or whatever during certain times. But we've got communities here that we came to love. I mean, a lot of us, military, came back here because this was home. Whether it's the Four Seasons, whether, you know, I remember a time, yeah, we can't do it anymore. We leave your doors unlocked. It wasn't a big deal. I still know my neighbors now. A lot of communities, you don't know your neighbors. They don't want to know you. But we've got a great communities here. I think we have to do everything we can to support it. And I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hendrickson. Supervisor Falkowski, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The very difficult part is to deal with that open meetings law compliance. That's primarily where I'm going to not be supporting for the shift on that. The interesting thing about ignoring laws is you either become governed by the rule of laws or you become governed by men and women. So if arbitrarily we don't like something, we think that we can ignore it, or just because somebody else did it, we should be doing it too, I think is kind of not a good precedent. I mean, like Supervisor Marsh said, we're not unwilling to work for the goals. It's the unwillingness to comply with the law that makes it difficult, and to ignore that and to just say, well, it's a good idea. It'll make me feel better if we're participating in it, just because we can ignore the laws. That I think is a bad standing. It's a bad standing for the county to do, because quite frankly, then we'll kind of evolve into disregarding a lot of laws that we don't agree to. But getting aside from that, if in fact, if there's some conflation of trying to say that we do not support economic development, I think that's false. If I understand correctly, we're responsible for the airport. So if a turboprop company, or a company that has a turboprop plane has specific requirements, it's the county that comes to fix that, to deal with it. It's not, we do have our responsibilities for economic development. We do participate for achieving those goals. Participating with Lakeshore Progress, I don't think we are impeding their actions at all. They contribute to the communities that participate with them, the Two Rivers, the Manitowocs, the Michigots, the whoever, the Keels. They have their own their interest basically to have that participation. They want their communities developed. Just as a side note, their communities will grow, so will our tax base. So we really are focused into achieving the goals that we need to do as a county board, as a county representation for what the needs for economic development would be, not a membership. If Lakeshore Progress can comply with the opens records laws, I don't think there's that dynamic and that argument's gonna actually happen. But however, since it is there, it is an impediment. It is an impediment to continue forward, saying we can ignore it because these are the rules of the laws that we're gonna decide that are important, because, you know, these other counties, they're ignoring it. We can do that too. That precedent is kind of unbecoming, I think, of a critical board or a critical body that we're supposed to represent. We are supposed to be the high bar for our task as leaders, as representatives. You cannot go about it arbitrarily ignoring certain things because they'll make you feel better or you'll make you look good because we're going to help the dynamics in the population. And it's true. If you look at those population maps, I'm compelled to look at it and say, well, what is it? Is it a dynamic shift? Is it a population shift? What are the dynamics? You don't know that. And I'm a little cautious about just looking at things and saying, I'm going to respond to things just because of how it's going to either appear or make me feel. I really do try to not conflate those separate issues. The facts are, they don't comply with open records laws. For that, I don't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Falkowski. And now I'm going to chime in, I guess, because I guess one man's facts are a different man's not truths. Let's go back a little history, I guess, regarding Progress Lakeshore / Economic Development Corporation of Manitowoc County. When this whole discussion about leaving the organization, when then, or County Executive Zigobor talked about it because of the compliance of the open meetings law, we already were members of the organization for 7 years. Then Corporation Counsel Steve Rollins issued an opinion that Progress Lakeshore, or I should say Economic Development Corporation of Manitowoc County at that time, should comply with Wisconsin open meetings laws. I guess the best of both worlds is being a city council member for an alderman for the city of Manitowoc. I had an opinion written by then city attorney Juliana Renzel saying that no, the city of Manitowoc did not have to, or the Economic Development Corporation did not have to participate, I guess, in open meetings law. So and I also have an opinion from, I know it's the city of Two Rivers attorney. I think I know his right name, but I don't want to make sure. And I know the city of Kiel has offered that opinion as well. So 4 entities in Manitowoc County, 3 different opinions. So once again, there's no argument of fact of law here. I guess it's interpretation of the law. I guess, and from my opinion, and I'll talk about it later, but it's interpretation, not fact. Supervisor Giroux, you are next. If I can get your arrow on your speaker thing, it's not, there we go, you're on. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a point of order, you restricted Supervisor Hulschbuck before, saying this is your second term, and you've responded to practically everybody that said anything tonight. Are you allowed to do that as chair?
As the chair, I have certain discretion, yes.
Wow, okay.
And I guess, and for most of the things I've been responding back to, I guess it wasn't so much a response of my opinion, it's just, I guess, the interpretation of what was being said.
Well, you read a couple letters, and there were other people that were in order to speak, and you just mentioned it to Supervisor Hulsbrook. That's why I wondered. I support Progress Lakeshore, although I think a lot of people here think that I don't. My understanding is that if this passes and we put this back into the budget, we'll be the single largest contributor of anybody to Progress Lakeshore? No?
With the risk of trying to, I guess, speak once again as the chair, the city of Manitowoc contributes $65,000.
Okay, so we're close though, right? So we're second, is that my understanding?
That sounds right.
So we're second, all right, I stand corrected. This is my issue. We're elected to be guardians of the public treasury, and yet we're being asked to essentially donate, some would say invest, $60,000 with limited transparency and accountability. Now, and some are saying, well, everybody else is doing it. Well, I would hope that we would not do it, and that we would start something where other people would wonder why they are doing it. I think if the Wisconsin Economic Development Group is able to survive by meeting in closed session when they have to, and keeping the things private that need to be kept private. I used to be on the Manitowoc City Council. We had closed sessions when there were issues like this. They happened here at the Manitowoc County level. I have absolutely no desire to withhold this money from Progress Lakeshore, but this discussion that I was not aware of, that Supervisor Marsh mentioned before, concerns me even more. This is the taxpayers' dollars. We are supposed to be watching those. That's what it comes down to for me. And I realize some of you are struggling with this issue and have obviously gone to the dark side by saying this doesn't matter. Well, I think it does matter. And I hope that there are enough here that this will not happen this evening. I think if they want the money, they're going to have to comply. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Giroux. Supervisor Zimmer, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard people talk about disregarding the state statutes pertaining to open meetings. But the reason those state statutes exist, Mr. Chairman, is to ensure that the precious taxpayer dollars that we use are used correctly and properly. We can't just hand over money to a private organization disregarding state open meetings laws and hope that they'll spend it wisely. No accountability whatsoever. That is harming our taxpayers. We're not being responsible custodians of our the monies that they give us. That's irresponsible. We can't do that. You know, some people say have indicated that the Progress Lakeshore is so effective that because it's so effective, we need to violate the state statutes. I disagree. And if they're so effective, then why are we not growing, as has been alleged? The Progress Lakeshore in its previous incarnation was the Economic Development Corporation. Gosh, we should be prosperous like no other city in Wisconsin. They've been around a long time. Why has the tax base not expanded, given the fact that Progress Lakeshore has been around so long? And we're assured that if we give them this money, the heavens will open and the lucre will fall down from the skies and we'll all be wealthy and prosperous. We need to pay attention to the very services that we are required to accomplish as a county government. That's why I alluded to District Attorney LeBray earlier. We don't have enough money to be throwing it around to private organizations. We need to focus on those very responsibilities that we are charged with providing to our taxpayers. And if we don't do that, then they have reason to question our wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Zimmer. Supervisor Metzger, you were next.
I believe we all received the resolution from Greg Buckley, and I did send him a couple emails back and forth, and he said, to me, he said that the open meetings law is not required with Progress Lakeshore. That's what he said. And then I emailed him back, and I had asked him something about, no, he emailed me and he said, well, the city of Manitowoc doesn't agree with it either, do they? And I said, I really didn't know. But now Jim had mentioned that they really don't. I guess, and then there was a woman that spoke last meeting, and she had said that a lot of it was because of the private funding. That must be like maybe West Foundations or something like that is what I'm thinking, why it can't be subject to open meetings law. And then I guess I'm also wondering, why was that taken off of our agenda tonight, the presentation and open meetings law? I'm wondering if there's a disagreement with our corp counsel and maybe the county exec. I mean, why was this taken off? I was kind of looking forward to hearing about what he had to say about it after getting Greg Buckley's email. I just thought it would have been kind of interesting.
To be clear, the reason it came off tonight is because I'm actually ill. I came in specifically for this county board meeting and was not quite frankly up to doing the presentation. The county's position is absolutely unequivocally that the Economic Development Corporation is subject to the public meetings law, period. There is no question. That has been the county's position since Corporation Counsel Rollins issued his formal opinion.
Just to follow, I guess, a little bit, and Peter was willing to give the presentation tonight, yet I stepped in, I guess, as you can hear, his voice is going. I mean, we're not mean people here,
That's
so.
where I came from.
So, all right. But continue on, Supervisor Metzger, you have the floor yet.
Well, so I am supporting the Progress Lakeshore. I think that we need to get over this open meeting law thing. Let's move above and beyond and see what happens. Let's do it for a year, check it out, maybe 2 years. Let's see what happens. Come on, let's just vote for it already. And I mean, we're repeating ourselves over and over and over. Let's just do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Metzger. Supervisor Swade, you were next.
Thank you. I really don't know how to come about with this, but I had a couple questions asked of me that I didn't think I could answer. It dealt with the open meetings. The question to me was, is the county executive's opinion supported by a court of law? And what about your attorney? Has his opinion been supported in a court of law? I says, I don't think so. And then the person told me, he says, well, then how do you know that what they do is not legal? I couldn't answer that. I can see where that point, where that person was coming from, that you have to have a legal opinion from a court, some judge in some court somewhere to say yes or no, definitely that is wrong. Otherwise, like he told me, he says, that opinion isn't any more than what you tell me. That's what I've been getting from outside, so thank you very much.
Thank you for Supervisor Swain. I guess at the risk of speaking once again, while I'm not necessarily in agreement with what's then Corporation Counsel Steve Rollins opined, I guess, in regards to our participation, and I know Peter carries on with it. I don't want to say, when I say refuse to look at it again, he's essentially he's not going to look at it, and he agrees with it. A lot of the law, I guess, is based on this, and I know we can go on and on about this, but it's the Beaver Dam versus their Economic Development Corporation, or some case that became an open meetings law case here in the state of Wisconsin. And that seems to become the standard, I guess, in regards to all these things like that. Out of the 4 opinions that we received over the years, like I said, from Manitowoc County, the city of Two Rivers, Kiel, and Manitowoc, 3 out of the 4 said that the Beaver Dam case didn't apply, and Manitowoc County said it did. So I guess you're somewhat correct. I mean, I believe in the stance, I guess, of Steve Rollins and carried on by Peter Conrad, and as Peter's mentioned, it is the stand of Manitowoc County that it will be in violation of the open meetings law, but I do think you're also right that it's open to interpretation. And there has really been no case on this. I know we've talked about asking for the Attorney General's opinion on this as well, but we can go round and round. So, thank you. Supervisor Hanson, you were next.
I just have a quick question, if Peter is well enough to answer it. Are you aware at this time, are there any court cases or people challenging the opens meeting law in these organizations? There's a few of them around the state, but is there anybody challenging it at this time that they're breaking the law?
I'm not aware of anything that was pending. I think similar to the Beaver Dam case, you don't know until it's going to happen.
Okay, so it's not like there's like the sales tax thing, there's cases currently being considered?
Correct, nothing
Okay.
that I'm aware of.
All right.
I do also recall, at least looking at the file materials, that we actually did seek an Attorney General's opinion on this. I don't know at any point why we didn't get one, formal or informal, but for whatever reason, we did not end up getting an Attorney General's opinion on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hanson. Let's see, Supervisor Benke, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greg Buckley's not an attorney, so I would talk to an attorney before I talk to Greg Buckley's opinion on this thing. You can get 8 attorneys in a room and ask them to interpret the Beaver Dam case, and you're probably going to get a diverse opinion on whether the municipality has to abide by the open meetings law. You're not going to hear me talk about Progress Lakeshore with some of the words that are put out: frivolous spending, wasteful spending. That's not my concern. My concern is not with the job that Progress Lakeshore does. They do a good job. I'm not anti-economic development, but I support our corporation counsel and our previous corporation counsel's opinion on the open meetings law. Moving forward, I'd sure love to just take a chance and move forward and all those things, but I'm pretty much hung on the fact of for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years that we had 4 human service directors, and we all hung our hat on the fact that our corporation counsel said that it was legal. People were saying that it was illegal. And we hung our hat on the fact that our corporation counsel's opinion, and we all stood behind that opinion because that's what we're paying for, or the taxpayers paying for. So tonight, I'm doing the same thing. I'm holding my vote to our attorney's legal opinion. There are diverse legal opinions throughout all the organizations. I don't understand why Progress Lakeshore cannot abide by the open meetings law. If the state organization can do it, there's no reason. The comment was, definition of insanity is doing things over and over with the same results. Every single year they come and ask for this money. All we ask is to abide by the open meetings law. And they can do it. They just refuse to do it. So we can get a whole bunch of attorneys in the room, get all these diverse. I'm not anti-Progress Lakeshore. But I think they can, as Supervisor Marr said, let's come to an agreement and get it done. They get it done, sign the agreement, I'm all in. My vote is, give them the 60,000. I have no problem with that. But I'm gonna support our legal counsel's opinion that they have to abide by the open meetings law. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Benke. Supervisor Metzger, you were next.
I'd like to give my second voice to Supervisor Holzbach, please.
Okay. Supervisor Holzbach, you have the floor.
Very quickly, a couple people have said we're ignoring the law in doing this. Supervisor Banky just made the case, I think, for many of us. We're not ignoring the law. Laws are subject to interpretation, as everybody has been saying. I respect the current corporate counsel and the former corporate counsel, but those are two opinions in a context of being corporate counsel for a very convincing county executive, and that's not to say that they base their opinions on the county exec's opinion, but we're talking about not ignoring the law. We're talking about interpretations of the law and opinions, so not ignoring the law.
Thank you, Supervisor Holzbach. Any other discussion on the motion? Any other discussion? And one last time, going to speak. All right. First of all, very good discussion, once again, as we always talk about. And I know we can agree to disagree, and I think that's an understatement with this discussion. I go back to over the last 12 years of the several comments I've heard. First of all, an asset to the county. The next time it's an enigma. And last but not least, it's called crony capitalism. Those are three remarks that I heard County Executive Ziegelbauer speak of over the last 12 years regarding the Economic Development Corporation / Public Progress Lakeshore. I guess I'm fairly convinced that it wasn't a matter of the open meetings rule. There's something else going on, I guess. I just don't understand that, but I'm going to try to stay away from that argument tonight. Back in 2003, there was a handful of us here. If I counted correctly, I think 9 of us were here on the county board. When then a fledgling organization came to the county to look for funding amongst the cities and the county to fund the Economic Development Corporation. And they just didn't do it frivolously. They went around. They looked at other economic development corporations across the state of Wisconsin, and if I recall correctly, one of the ones that was modeled after was Fond du Lac County. And I guess over the years, I've been very fortunate to learn and become good friends with County Executive Alan Beagle, who's the county executive in Fond du Lac. And without him and their county board and discussions with their economic development corporation, the Mercury Corporation would no longer be in Wisconsin for that matter. So kudos to them. I don't want to say I don't think the argument of the open meetings law is valid, because I do think there's some discussion on that. I do think it's somewhat valid, but, and I know it sounds like we're talking like the other ones, that other counties do it or other areas do it, we can do the same thing. I don't think there's a disregard for it. I just think it works. And as Supervisor Morris spoke, and she was I guess our lone and only representative while we were still members of the Economic Development Corporation. Every time, actually, she gave a monthly report at the county board meeting, and it was very informative. And if there's any questions I had other than what she gave in reports, she always gave great responses and didn't hold anything back. I don't need to know the financial assets of a business, I guess, at that stage. And, things like that should remain quiet, private. I've also done it at the city level. Every time I've asked our representative at the city level, I've always gotten answers. Every time I've talked to Peter's predecessors about things, I've got answers. I've got answers from Peter. I've talked to their board members. I've gotten answers. Have any of you even tried, I guess, to ask for those answers? I don't think anybody's hiding anything that shouldn't be hidden. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. They've always been forthcoming. I don't understand why there's this cloak of secrecy here. And I go back to my island argument. Manitowoc County is becoming an island. We are an island. We're surrounded by other counties that are doing more to promote and develop economic development within their counties. I don't think there's one of us here that doesn't enjoy living in Manitowoc County. This is our home. Some of you have been here all our entire life, some of you have moved here. But we all enjoy being here, and we want to see this be successful, our county be successful. But we can't be successful with other organizations and other things if we're not part of them. It just doesn't make sense, and I've said this argument before, and I know maybe you chastise me for it, that it's participation, but businesses and people that come to this area and talk with Progress Lakeshore, talk with the Chamber of Commerce, find out about the schools, they find out about electricity rates, things like that, job placements, how many people they can get employed. But one of the questions that shows up, well, how come Manitowoc County's not participating in your economic development? And I guess I don't have the answer. I don't exactly know why we don't. So that's why, once again, I requested, I remember last time when Supervisor Hanson, then Chairman Hanson, we had a veto override on a Saturday morning, we tried. It passed 15 to 10, it didn't override, it passed the majority of the county board. But that's, once again, I feel it's very strongly that Manitowoc County should participate in Progress Lakeshore. That's why I put it in my budget for the county board. So I encourage you to support it tonight. If you don't, let's start thinking of alternatives for economic development here in Manitowoc County. With that, I will turn over to Lois Keel, the county clerk, to conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote to override the county executive's veto.
As people are voting, remember, if you're voting yes, you're voting to include the $60,000 in the budget. If you're voting no, you're saying it remains and the veto stands, and the $60,000 will not be part of the budget. Does everybody understand that? Because you can still pull your vote back yet. So everybody understands it, okay. So the motion passed 14 to 11, obviously not enough to override the veto of Right, well, it passed, but it failed to, I was gonna say it failed to override the veto. So the people who voted no were Supervisors Williams, Gauger, Zimmer, Banky, Wagner, Kavanaugh, Marish, Mink, Falkowski, Giroux, and Dizak. So with that, we have nothing else on the agenda this evening. Everybody have a safe trip home. Glad we didn't get the snow. I'm glad the snow plows didn't have to go out already, like the southern part of the county. So with that, a motion to adjourn will be in order. Motion by Supervisor Dizak, second by Supervisor Mink. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.